Focus on Ghana is brought to you in association with MoneyGram.
Focus on Ghana is discussing the democratic situation in Ghana as an example for the African situation. Nana Boakye has joined us on the line, and we'll go to him quickly before we move on to our next line of discussion. The line is 02075017701. Nana Boakye.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we need to look at fixed terms for our electoral commissioner. The fact that an electoral commissioner can just be there for years and years and years, I mean, it doesn't augur well for our country. I think we need fixed terms for our future electoral commissioners. We have seen the huge mistakes and errors.
Now, if you talk about fixed terms, what number of years are you looking at?
Oh, well, similar to a sitting president serving for just 8 years. We should just have 2 fixed terms for our electoral commissioner, so that at least we can have a body that is always fit for purpose and always open for renewal and change. Because, a body cannot be fixed forever. We need to have it always in renewal and change. You see, the electoral commission that we have in Ghana, as compared to other African countries, is not fit for purpose at all. A country like Ghana is not good enough.
Well, thank you very much, Nana. Well, Nana throws us right into the fray of having our next level of discussion, the constitutional review. The Constitutional Review Commission has presented its report to the President. Various changes have been proposed. The IDEC proposed an interesting bit of what should be done, and I want to throw in that one that says that in between elections, the main political parties, the ruling party and the main opposition and all the other opposition parties, are supposed to have their elections, internal elections, done within a certain period. And there should be legislation to cover that. Now, let me come to you. The politicians I know will definitely hold me by my neck and that. But, Doctor, let me come to you. Do you think it's workable?
It is workable. I mean, as they say, charity begins at home. So perhaps if we can see the internal electoral processes of the party themselves coming out well, then they would have, the onus to be able to challenge the national elections.
Let me pose this question. If it is that people are calling for legislation to control the way you do your internal things, time frame and everything respected, are we not looking at a situation where you go into a position and all you do is to prepare for the next elections? You don't contribute to national development.
I think first of all, we have to recognize that political parties are there for a purpose, okay, and they also are independent to the extent that they have to run their own affairs. We've just come out of a national conference where we've elected our national executives, and that whole process is part of our culture. Okay, what we do will be very different to what NDC will do or what PNC will do or any other political party will do, and rightly so, because we have a constitution as a political party. That constitution enjoins us to do elections every 4 years for national officers, and for constituency executives, for regional executives, etc. Okay. We also hold congresses and conferences in between that on an annual basis. So our constitution is what defines this. During that time as well, of course, in this particular case, being in opposition, we continue to contribute to the whole.
Let me find out from Dr. Amakuba, political science lecturer of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, what he thinks of the various proposals. Dr. Amwa, thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I can barely hear you.
Yeah, it's a bit faint, but I'll do my best to see if I could really elevate my voice. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
I can hear you.
Good. We're looking at reforms that have been proposed for our democratic situation in the country. What do you make of that?
Well, a lot of people said a lot of things, but most of it were not direct related. It's the same things we've heard before. More laws, how to do this and how to do that. Some were good. I suggested that we need what I call restricted due process. there were other people who were saying that the Ghanaians should practice their own brand of democracy, which to me didn't really make much sense at all. Yeah. Because democracy does not belong to anyone. It belongs to anyone who wants to practice it. And so I ask me, whose democracy do you think Ghana has been practicing all the time? It is our democracy. That's why it's not working. Right? So I suggest a restricted due process, which means you write a constitution, make sure you don't leave too much room for discretion, because it is discretion that brings about the abuse of power, corruption, and all of that. And of course,
now, from that, quickly, then let me ask, Doctor, if you look at the comprehensive review or look at the Constitution is kind of intertwined. All the articles and all the provisions are intertwined. So if you're looking at a comprehensive one, then probably we'll have to write it again.
Indeed, that's what I've been preaching for almost 2 years now, that we need to write a new constitution, because the old one doesn't work. It has just too many problems in it. Everywhere you look, there's a problem. I'm sure you heard one time Ghanaians were swearing in the speaker any time the president and vice president out of the country. And of course, I pointed this out that we can't do that, because of the provisions of the Constitution that shows that when the president is outside the country, he is still in the official capacity as the president of the country, and therefore they can't swear someone in. And of course, I think now they get it. But because of the way the Constitution is written, that part, it's just written wrong. So even interpreting it is a problem.
Well, okay.
Everywhere you look, there's a problem in it.
Right.
So I've been advocating
that we rewrite the Constitution. Well, unfortunately, we're struggling to hear Doctor. We apologize for that, but I think he's made a very succinct point that we need to have.
On that?
I'm coming back to you.
Okay.
We need to have a comprehensive review of the Constitution. Yes, your reaction.
Yeah. So you know, the point is, I think we have to acknowledge that the Constitution is a living document, and it was a progression. If you look at the history of how the 92 Constitution came about, there were certain weaknesses of the previous Constitution, the 79 Constitution, which I believe the constitutional drafters took, to the other extreme. Our Constitution is very similar to the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is based on separation of powers. So the executive, the legislature, the judiciary should be very separate. Okay. We have a system that's trying to combine the executive and the judiciary. We have ministers being appointed from parliament. That is something that we need to address. So for me, I think that's one thing we need to address. We need to address issues around, again, the whole issue of the institutions that the Constitution enjoins us to form. So we have 170 administrative areas which have created, district councils, etc. Let's decentralize. Let's allow elections to happen at the district level so people become accountable, closer to their people. All those sorts of things need to
these are the kind of changes we're looking at. And the separation of powers, it looks like there's so much power at the top, at the executive. We'll come into that. Kojo wants to quickly put in this point. Hello, Kojo.
Hello, Kwaku.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, we will all welcome this reform you were talking about.
Yes.
We will all welcome it. But the question is, would they be independent? No. So as long as they are not independent, the president will form an electoral commissioner for whatever reason. As long as they are not independent, it will not work.
All right. Kojo, thank you very much. Let me quickly come to Kofi. The reform that have been proposed. Do you think that we should have a total overhaul of the Constitution, or probably redefine certain aspects of it?
I don't think we should have a total overhaul of Constitution. Some aspects we can look at. I think I agree with Michael. The fact that ministers are appointed from Parliament, that weakens Parliament. They can't perform their job as a oversight independent body that checks and balances the executive. You see, because executive is the Parliament is compromising already, because the executive has appointed some of them there. So I think that is a problem. We don't actually see the separation of powers working properly in that respect. So we should look at how we're going to address that. I don't know. I haven't looked at the proposals that come forward. Whether there's something like that.
Well, Doctor, then I'll give you the last bit. These reforms that your colleagues in the academia are proposing, what do you make of them?
Well, essentially, the Constitutional Review Committee has done a very comprehensive work. And I think there's a proposal to have a referendum sometime in November. And what remains on the table really is left with capital punishment, whether the president needs parliamentary approval before declaring war, and more importantly, the Article 71, which actually sets out the pay packages of the President and the Vice, the Speaker of Parliament, Chief Justice and Supreme Court judges, MPs, ministers, political appointees, spin doctors, and public servants charged to the consolidation fund. So that's what's left for the Constitutional Review Committee to mop up. And then perhaps in November we go for a referendum, which has already taken care of all the points that we discussed.
Okay. Well, for the democracy in Ghana and Africa to thrive and improve, there must be the constant review of the process. And I can say that from the ongoing discussion, Ghana wants to do it right, and the people must go along with the proposals. Forward ever, backwards never is the mantra that has to be followed. Well, thank you to Dr. Michael Amoah of the SOS, and to Michael Ansah of the NPP, and Kofi Kwachi of the NDC. And to my viewers, I want to thank you very much. Well, some of the callers I had to rush through with you because we didn't have too much time on our hands. But in any case, it's been a very good discussion. Thank you very much. Let's meet again on another edition of the program. Goodbye.